Hi guys, Niall here. Welcome back to the 8020 BIM channel. Today we're going to talk about what I think the best free Revit viewer is at the moment, and it's actually the Autodesk web app called viewer.autodesk.com. It used to be part of the A360 suite that Autodesk had, and they've since relaunched it, and it is a really intuitive and simple to use viewer. It is absolutely excellent. You can take basic measurements, do markups, make comment lines, share among design teams. There's a lot you can do with this. Perfect for things like liaising with clients on design side of things. The viewer itself is capable of taking about 50 plus different file formats, including Revit, DXF, DWG. You have Navisworks files. It can take Inventor files. It can take a huge array of files directly into it. So it's very, very good. The thing I really enjoy about it is the fact that it's browser based, so there's no limitation on hardware. So one of the best pro about this that I can describe is it's free. All you need is an Autodesk account. It is compatible with so many file types, and there is no real barrier to entry in terms of hardware specifications. I have run this on a Chromebook with a Celeron process and 2 gig of RAM. I've run it on my phone. I've run it on an old Samsung tablet just as a sanity check, and this is run perfectly well. All you need is a good browser and a decent internet connection. That being said, one of the issues is that you do require an internet connection to use this. So it's not native on your desktop, so if you're somewhere without Wi-Fi or a hotspot, you might be dead in the water when it comes to the viewer, but generally I think that this is the most accessible viewer going. Excuse me. So on launch, when you go to viewer.autodesk.com, you're presented with this screen and you should sign in. Okay, so I'm just going to sign in with my details here. Excuse me. And you can see that we have a number of projects already brought in. Okay, so the way you can bring a project into the Autodesk viewer is you have upload file on the top right corner here. Okay, you'll see that we have owned by me and shared with me in the center. If someone has shared a model with you, you will see it in this area here, but owned by me are the ones that I've previously uploaded. So I'm going to go upload new file, and you can see that we have a drag and drop, or we have a select file, or upload a full folder. Okay, so I have the sample projects belong to Revit open here, and I could merely just grab one of these and drag it over, and you'll get this window here, right? So what this says is, does this have more than one file present? So what it's requesting there is, are there multiple links we need to consider? So this is an architectural file I'm just after uploading. Could there be a structural file? Could there be a mechanical file? Could there be all of the other discipline files that you coordinate against as links that need to be added here? And the way to add them as well is to merely grab them and drag them and copy them there. So then you've got the parent file and you've got the reference files as such. Okay, so I'm not going to go through that process because I've already done it for this file. I'm just going to close that. Okay, and I'm going to go back to this window here. So I want to open the RAC Advanced sample project. And you can see that once you've uploaded it originally, it takes a little while to upload between the upload times and the processing times. But once it's been processed, it's very, very quick to actually start viewing the models. Okay, and you can see up here in the right hand corner, there's a warning straight away with a processing log. And this means essentially when you see this, that there's a link that is absent from the upload. So I can go into the processing log and you will see that saying there's a missing link in this file called newspaper JPG. So it's just an image file. It's not something we're concerned about. So I'm just going to close it there. Okay. So now that we're into a model within the Autodesk viewer, I want to talk about the interface and how you can manipulate the model for your viewer needs. So you can see that on the top toolbar here, we have the way to access the views here. We have our view tab, which brings up the view palette. We have the model browser tab, which brings up the breakdown of all of the items within the model. Okay, so for example, I can select roofs, and by selecting roofs, everything that's not roofs goes hidden and the roof is highlighted. Okay, and you can see that we have this front roof and the back roof there. There's 3 roofs in total. Okay, to get everything visible again, I just go to the model category and I select in space there, and it turns everything back onto visible. Beside that, we have properties. So this opens your properties palette, and you can see that this is reporting the properties of the 3D view itself. But going back to the roofs, I'm going to open it. I'm going to go to basic roofs, and I'm going to select concrete deck. Okay, and when I select that, you will see that the properties over here in the palette have updated to reflect the concrete deck tapered insulation. So this is the family that was created, and here is the properties that are associated to that family. So it's a data-rich file viewer. It's not just the objects. Okay, the only way you can meaningfully select things is through the object tree, and I don't really have a problem with this because it's very difficult when you're not in the modeling environment to select things at a level when you're in 3D views. You have to kind of select through multiple layers. So this to me is a more intuitive way of selection once you get used to it. So going back up to model, selecting it, everything becomes visible again. And then we can go into our settings tab. Now, by and large, I recommend you don't change the settings tab. If you're happy with the presentation that you're seeing behind here, you don't need to touch this. What this does, if I grow it down here a little bit, is it allows you to configure how things are shown. So it gives you a smoother navigation if you wish, but it uses more processing. You can have progressive display. You can change the presentation of display elements. So for example, ghost hidden objects there. Okay, so previously we selected roofs, and you can see that everything was slightly visible. It kind of went to a wireframe grayscale look, and the roofs remained visible. But if I turn off ghost hidden objects, everything that isn't actually selected and is hidden via the eye indicator there turns off completely. Okay, so that's an important one to know. Display lines, display points, and display edges, that's all about turning on and off the line work of the views. And then we have the selection modes: leaf object, first object, and last object. You don't need to really worry about that, to be honest with you. Via navigation, we can show the view cube or not. We can we can make the view cube as a pivot. Okay. Again, there's no real need for that. Your orbiting tools, your zoom tools, your scroll speed, drag speed, all these things are customizable. As a rule, just get used to the defaults, in my opinion. Okay. Under appearance, you can give it anti-aliasing or not, so you can make it a little bit more jagged or a little bit smoother. I prefer the smoother look myself. You can turn on and off ambient shadows, so when I turn back on the model geometry, I can turn off the ambient shadows and I can turn off the ground shadows, and it kind of gives a flatter presentation. You can also turn off ground reflection, and I think by default that's actually turned off. And in the environment, we can control the background and give it various different types of background that we want. To be honest with you, the default background is one of the better presentations. That's why it's the default. Okay. So now that we've familiarized ourselves with the access of the various palettes through the top left tab here, okay, I'm going to close these elements. And I'm going to talk a bit about navigation. Something I was just failing at, okay? So as you can see, we have this kind of crosshair arrangement in the middle where we've got our crosshair for the center of our view, and we have this kind of circle that goes around the boundary, okay? And the circle acts as a pivot point. So your general orbit is a left click, your pan is a right click, okay? And your zoom in and out is the mouse wheel as you're accustomed to, okay? So selecting up here, you actually pivot on the axis of the selection. So you rotate in those directions, okay? Similarly, when you select one of the crosshair north, south, east direction selections, it locks to that XY axis, for example. So it locks to the axis of rotation, okay? So you can very quickly manipulate your placement in the view with this. So you'll also notice that we're in a perspective view here, okay? But when we go to our view cube, much the same as Revit, we can right click and we can change the type of view. So we can say perspective view with ortho faces. We can say orthographic view, which is similar to your default 3D in Revit, for example. Okay. You also have set current view as home. So when you're modeling, so let's say we go to this A1 floor plan. Because that's gone, because that's a 2D plan, you don't have the view cube. But if you had multiple 3Ds and you wanted the client, let's say, to open on your flashiest perspective that you've set up, you can right click in that view and set that as your home. Okay, you can reset your home, you can focus and set as home. And then the set current view is top and front. And to be honest with you, I haven't had much use for these at all. It kind of it's kind of negligible. It's more of an ordering thing in the breakdown here in the views. So you can set a home, and then you can have the next in the sequence as your next preferred view to show off, basically. But it's not particularly useful. Okay. You also have your default home button there, which will snap you back to your home. Okay, I'm going to put that back to perspective because I think it looks a bit flashier. And you have the drop down here on the view cube, much the same. And that's the same as your right click menu. So now that we've familiarized ourselves with the view cube and how to navigate, I want to talk a little bit about this bottom toolbar here. Okay, this bottom toolbar has some of the same functions. So I can press home and it'll take me back to that home view, which is an orthographic 3D. So I'm going to go back to perspective there. If it'll let me. It won't let me. Okay, I don't know why it's not letting me there. Okay, it's locked for a moment. I'll have to go through. I'll just reset that now in a moment, okay? You can press fit, and fit will snap the whole view to fit the screen. You also have orbit as default. So orbit is how you left click and you turn around, and then you can select pan if you want the manual control with your left click, but I prefer to leave the orbit selected and then use the right click as pan. Okay, we have zoom, which, to be honest with you, I don't really see much of a benefit from when you can use your mouse wheels. So again, I leave it default in orbit. But there's a really, really useful tool here, and it's called first person. And the way the first person works, when you select it, it gives you this navigation tool set so you can become familiar. So much the same as you orbit with your left click, you can look around, okay, with your left click. You can adjust the speed using the plus and minus arrow keys. Not the plus and minus keys, sorry, on your keyboard. You can use shift and the direction key to speed up, basically to run, okay? You can go up and down, that's your relative elevation, okay? So you can press Q to go down and E to go up. And when you release the key, it will snap to the nearest floor level. So if you have multiple levels already set up, it'll snap up to them, okay? And then you can use your arrow keys or your WASD key, like gaming, to walk around. So the combination of WASD and your look around gives you kind of greater control of how you view the model. You can also double click a space and it'll teleport you there. Okay, so I'm going to press OK, got it here. And I'm going to press first person. Sorry, I'm going to press OK, got it. And I'm going to double click over here. And you can see it's dropping me down automatically. Okay, and now I can look around. Pressing W, it's going to move me forward as if I'm walking, and then pressing Shift will speed that up. As such. You can use your left and your right in combination with your arrow, and you can see that you can control very easily where you are in the model. Okay, so I can actually just pretend to go in through the door here and do a walk through of the corridors. Now, if you're familiar with gaming, this will come a lot more intuitively if you're a gamer than if you're not. Okay. And you'll have a situation here where you have to go up the stairs. Now the problem is it's not automatically. It kind of bumps up the stairs a bit, but I quite like that. I think that's very, very intuitive. You can see the lighting there, and we can go back around and you can go back up the stairs again. So there's a great amount of control as a default using this method. And it's a really good way of walking a client or another design stakeholder through the building so they can really understand the volumes and the spaces without having to go through the process of some sort of rendering exercise or anything like that. The fantastic thing about this is because it's free and freely available and you can share it, you can literally just send the client the file and they can start doing this themselves. So the first person is a wonderful tool. I recommend it to everyone as a presentation tool. We also have the measure tool, okay? And this is where we're going to start talking about these elements over here in combination with the top right tabs here, okay? The combination of the measure, section, explode, and markup can be used in conjunction with the comments and the screenshots so that you can communicate data to other people, okay? So I'm going to press home and I'll turn off first person and go back to orbit, okay? I'm going to zoom in. And the first thing I want to become familiar with is the measure tool, okay? So I'm going to go towards our entrance lobby over here. And I'm going to take a couple of measurements. if I don't make a muck of my navigation. Apologies. So I've selected that, and now I'm rotating around it. And that's the thing, you can actually select an object and they become the center point of your orbit. I was going to say that. So I'm going to select that roof, and now you can see the view centers on it. Okay. So going to the measure tool, you get a full measure tab. We can measure the distance, the angle, we can calibrate, we can delete dimensions, and we can set up our dimension settings. So we're going to go into our settings here, and I'm going to change the unit type to millimeters. I'm going to set the precision to 0. I don't want to isolate measurements, and I don't want to enable free measure. I'm just going to leave them as a defaults, okay? Toy with these so you can see the effects of them. They're sometimes useful, but not often very useful. So I'm going to close the settings dialog, and I'm going to select distance, and I'm going to select the endpoint of the roof there, and the endpoint. And you can see that it leaves the dimension in place. Because that's moving on one axis, you can see that it's only giving me the one dimension, because obviously there's no dimension in any other direction. But if you look at this, because the roof here is at a pitch, I can take the endpoint here to the endpoint here, and when I finish the dimension, you will get to reporting other dimensions. It will give you the Y and the Z axis as well. So going in the Y axis, it's 3579, but the total length of the plane that we selected is 3724. So when we measure like this, we can actually add markups and comments to the measurements. Okay, so let's say I screenshot this view. Okay, so I press screenshot there. You can see the screenshot's already been set up. So when I press measure, it remains present. You can see the measurement still present. Okay, but I can also go to markup. When you press markup, it'll bring up this new kind of window. You see the way I kind of had that fade in. So what we can do is we can use these generic kind of markup tools. You should be familiar with these by and large, but we can cloud, for example, and I can select the cloud there. I can also press an arrow and bring it down to the cloud, and then I can select my text box, and I can give it a note saying route design for review. Click into space and it finishes that. And we also have kind of a free draw here. So we can select the pencil, and we can do a bit of a free drawing exercise if we want. We can also change the color. So you can actually create kind of a, let's say if you are coordinating with other people in your office, you can create a color scheme. Red means urgent, let's say. Orange could mean review required. Yellow could mean changes in progress. Green could mean finalized, and you could have blue and purple or something else. So you can kind of give a color designation to these so you have better structure to your markups. You can also dictate the weight of your lines, so you can have thinner lines if you wish. And you may forgive me, my pointer is not behaving. It's almost as if the model environment's changed, has frozen, but this is generally you can change these without too much of a fuss. Okay, I'm going to undo my smiley face, and I'm going to save that markup. And you can see that in the comments section, it's going to load here. Now this may take a moment, and I think the reason why this is taking so long and some of these little bugs are is because I'm actually accessing a VPN for my office at the moment. As you can imagine, the virus scare is going around, so this kind of utility becomes more important. So we're going to leave the comment to save itself there, okay? And I'm going to show you the share dialog. So we can share this model, and you can see that this design can be shared for 18 days, okay? So I actually uploaded this file a couple of days ago, about 12 days ago. And as a rule, there's a 30-day timer on the files, and then they should be re-uploaded. And this is actually a really useful feature that is embedded by default, because it means that the very nature of the design process means that things change constantly. And it forces you and your teammates that if you don't have a, let's say, a weekly design upload scheduled for your models, every 30 days you have to do it whether you like it or not, otherwise it's not available. So you can copy that link and you can then send it to via email, and anyone with the email can access it. Now the sharing options dictate what people can do. So anyone with this link will be able to take measurements, will be able to use the model browser, basically the breakdown of all the elements here, will be able to explode the full file. and we'll be able to use the section tool. Okay, so and generally these don't affect the overall integrity of the file, so I wouldn't be too worried about that. Leave them as defaults by and large. You can copy that link, you can send via email, and anyone who gets that email can log on to their Autodesk account that's associated to that email and view this file, make alterations, make comments. Okay, so we can go back to our commentary here, and I do not know why this is taking so long, so I'm going to go into the next tools. Okay, so Autodesk aren't doing themselves any favor here. I'm trying to state that this is the best design review tool for Revit that's freely available for the moment, and it's bugging out on me. Murphy's Law. Anyway, so I want to show you the explode tool. So when I come up here, I'm going to shut off my measure tool, and I'm going to go to my explode. And explode isn't a very useful tool, to be honest with you. I think it's more of a gimmicky tool than anything. So I can press explode and look at what happens to the model geometry. When I move the scale, it displaces the model geometry relative to itself. So the problem is you've no control over the direction of displacement. It kind of just emanates from the center point of the file out. And I really don't find it as any sort of meaningful way of communicating design intent or the project or the volumes at all. It just doesn't make sense to me. So let's say you might want to displace this information so that you can do a review of the stairs down here. Well, to be honest with you, the explode displacement is not a very clever way of doing that. The preferential way of doing that is merely to open your model browser, go down to stairs, select your stairs, and then you can see they're pretty much highlighted on their own. So, you know, that is a lot clearer, and you can see it relative to the space around it than using the explode tool. So the explode tool is gimmicky, it's fun, but it doesn't really do much. Finally, I want to show you how the section tool works. So let's say you want to communicate the volumes inside of this building here, but you want to do it down the length of the building. You can actually use the section tool, and you can use an X plane, a Y plane, the Z plane, or the box. Now, these you may not be familiar with the function of these, but if you've ever used Navisworks, you understand these very well. This is the means by which the direction of the plane is cut. So if I press the Y plane here, you can see that it cuts in the Y axis, okay? And then you can use the arrow here to drag this to your desired cut point of the building. So again, wanting to review that stairs there adjacent, I have cut that as such. So you kind of understand the layout of the stairs relative to the volume within it. And you can see the build-up of the volumes, you can see the voids above the ceilings, you can see the structural zones. So it's a very, very good way of taking snapshots and communicating information to other designers. Okay. Using the section tool, combination with the screenshot and the comments is very powerful. Okay, but you can also print directly from this view. So let's say I have set this and I've rotated the plane because I just want to be a little bit fancy about the whole thing. Okay, and I want to take a snapshot of this or print it externally. I can go to the print button here, and this will actually open a generic print window that will print outside of the browser directly onto your machine. So I can select, for example, the Bullzip PDF printer. I can go to my settings, I can set it as an A3 sheet, for example. I can give it a quality DPI, so I can give it 1200 DPI if I wish. I can leave it default scale, or I can customize the scale. I can turn off the headers and footers. And I can just print straight from that to a PDF file. Failing that, I can print directly to a plotter or a standard A3 color printer. So it's very, very powerful the way you can print directly from the dialog there, and the print dialog here is very intuitive. It's very easy to understand. So cancelling that, I want to close that window, and really that is how straightforward the Autodesk Viewer is to use. It's very intuitive. I'm going to turn off the section there. We're back to our normal view here. I can come over here, I can create a presentation view. I can right click, I'll set that as home view, okay, and then wherever I navigate I can press my home button and it'll snap me back. It's very, very intuitive to use, it's very simple. Go into the comments again, finally they've loaded, and you can see that my previous comment is there and it's readily available, okay, so I can close that markup there. And in the comment section you can see that we have the show result button. So at the top of every comment, these are ordered sequentially. The oldest is at the bottom, the newest is at the top. Okay. And there's a little resolve button here, and there's also a reply button here. So I can say review meeting scheduled for Tuesday, let's say, and I can press post. So again, anyone who has access to this file can see the full list of comments and markups, and they can see, okay, well, there's a comment being made saying that this roof is in need of a review, and that, okay, I've scheduled a meeting to resolve this on Tuesday. Okay. The wonderful thing is, once we've had that meeting on Tuesday and we've changed the design, we can basically just press resolve, and it disappears from the comment thread. Okay. By default, it disappears. But you'll notice that we have this button up here called show resolved, and you can see there's 5 items that have been resolved. So I can select that, and all the resolved items pop back into view all the way down through the model. Okay, so you can see this element was resolved, this element resolved, and this element resolved. Okay. Another thing to notice, if we go to our markup here, for example, you'll notice that the floor here was highlighted. So you don't only have to use the markup tool to highlight elements, but you can use the comment and the selection tool to select elements for comment. So you see the way when I hover my hand over that awning is being selected. When I hover my crosshair over the floor, it's selecting the full floor finish throughout. When I hover over this, so it's not as intuitive. Sometimes it gets a little caught up. I can hover it over the stairs, for example, and it'll select the stairs. I can hover it over that and it'll select this element here. So this is really powerful, because rather than using the comment and the bubbles, I can merely just, come here, select that, and then add a comment to it. And then it adds to the comment tree. So it's an easier way of doing a quick markup. So I can select this, let's say, and you can see underneath there's a comment that's been previously applied saying you can highlight elements for comments here. I can reply and say change depth to 200mm. Okay. Then the user behind me, the technician on the other side, can take that comment, make the alteration, and then tell me that it's been resolved. And then it drops away from the comments list. So at any given time, I can see what the active comments are remaining. Now, this is a really good way when people are remote working as well, to ensure that people are following the project timelines correctly. You have the comment list here. You can see how it's progressing elsewhere. Finally, we go into our screenshots, and our screenshots are just generic screenshots that we can download. And any given time, there's a screenshot window available there for you to download. Okay. So I think that about sums it up. Going back to my default 3D view. Sorry. Going to my home view. And the home view seems to have broken. So again, there seems to be a problem with the way this is functioning at the moment for me. And the reason it is, I believe, is because I'm actually connected to a VPN externally as well, and it's just failed to load some of the key features. Anyway, guys, that's a very, very quick rundown and kind of breakdown of how to use the Autodesk Viewer, cloud-based viewer at viewer.autodesk.com. Now more than ever, work sharing seems to be a critical utility for designers. And this being so accessible on so many devices, as long as you have an internet connection, it's just intuitively, to my mind, the best option out there at the moment. It's freely available. All you need is an Autodesk account. If you're using Revit anyway, you have an Autodesk account. It's not resource heavy. You can have it open in the browser. It doesn't eat a lot of system resources in terms of RAM or anything like that any more than another browser tab. So it's just, in my mind, very, very straightforward and easy to use, which is, if it does 80% of what it needs to do and everyone can use it freely, then it's probably the best. Now, I know it's not the only option. I know there's Calibri viewers. I know there's Navisworks itself. I know that there's BIM Vision. There's all of these utilities that you can install yourself directly on your machine. There's also the likes of Revisto and stuff, different cloud applications online. But the fact that you already have an Autodesk account by and large means that this one, to my mind, is the best Revit viewer at the moment. Another thing to note is this uses so many different file types that you can actually view CAD files on this. You can view Inventor files, you can view your DWFs. All of those things are also readily available and viewable on this. So you're not just tied to your Revit models in this. Any discipline that works within the Autodesk environment will benefit from the viewer package. So That closes this video. Thank you for tuning into the 8020 BIM channel. I hope you enjoyed it. Jump onto viewer.autodesk.com and have a go with this, play around with it. If you need these sample files and you already have Revit installed, you will see that they're available on your local disk, Program Files, Autodesk Revit 2018 samples, and you can throw them up and play around with them. As ever, like, comment, subscribe. If you use a different type of viewer, I'd love to hear about it in the comment section below. I'm always curious to see what other options are out there at the moment, and I've tried multiple. This one, to my mind, remains the king, but I'm open to be challenged on that, so please let me know in the comment section below. As ever, take care of yourselves out there at the moment, and we'll see you for the next video. Bye bye now.